I had a tendency to sort of maybe push it a bit too far, and then I'd have to get wound back in by our publisher and Cade, and then say, hey, maybe Henry, just remember it's a family audience.
Yes, please.
Henry Pinto and Cade Franklin shot to LEGO Masters fame when they took home the big prize in Season 1. Despite not knowing each other before the show, these two dads continued to work together on a very fun new project.
Welcome, Henry and Cade. Now, people might not know, but you guys didn't know each other before LEGO Masters. Are you BFFs now?
I don't know if I'd go that far. We were kind of put together, we were forced together on LEGO Masters, and through trial by fire, we have actually become very good friends.
Strictly working relationship for me, strictly working.
You've continued working together and have written a book together. What's it about?
So the book's called Brick Dad, and it's about two LEGO minifig families. It's about their families, it's about little jokes, things that everyone can relate to around the house that they might do with their families, maybe going on outings. And it's recreated with Lego bricks. One of the big things Henry and I loved doing on LEGO Masters was telling stories. And that's what we've tried to recreate here with Brick Dad.
So it is full of dad jokes. Did you both write it, or were your wives happy to remind you of all your dad jokes over the years?
No, we wrote it, but let's say we borrowed heavily from real life. And let's just say we really stepped up the dad joke-ness of the book.
A lot of the jokes in the book feature your respective wives and children. Did you have to get their sign off on all the gags?
Thankfully, the names aren't actually used in the book, so I could get away with quite a lot.
My sons were actually like, Dad, this isn't going to embarrass me, is it? And I was like, totally it will. 100%. You're going to high school, it's so going to embarrass you.
This was your first time doing toy photography. Was there a lot to learn?
We knew how to build stuff with Lego and tell stories with Lego, but photography is something that we've kind of developed and learnt along the way. Obviously, we did a lot of that during LEGO Masters and since LEGO Masters on Instagram, but this was really taking it to the next level.
What were some of the biggest challenges? What did you learn photography-wise?
I learned that minifigures collect a lot of dust. When you're taking photos of them, they are the dustiest things ever.
Yes.
But it's really hard to, I guess, because you're trying to bring, something that's so tiny and make it look like it's the size of a human. That's probably the biggest challenge.
For me, it was definitely lighting. I think that was the area that I kind of underestimated initially. But when the lighting is just right, it can make for some amazing photos.
How many photos all up were in the camera rolls of the cameras by the end?
I think I took one memory card, and I remember looking at it going, there's like 1,400 something photos on it.
Yeah.
Something ridiculous.
Yeah. And it was probably the same for me. You would take the same photo about 50 to 100 times just to get the right shot. But yeah, it was totally worth it.
You were each working on the writing and the photography in different locations. So were there any other challenges that you faced when doing that?
It was probably a very different dynamic, because when we were on the show, you could just lean over and talk to each other, and you had that really sort of very close sort of interaction. Whereas when you're doing it on, I guess correspondence, you have this sort of dynamic where you'd have a thought, and I would literally just have this rhythm where something would pop into my head and I'd just text him straight away, and then, he'd do the same to me. And then, you'd give feedback, and it's sort of a little bit more, sometimes it was probably more filtered because you'd have a think about it, and to actually write it down, you'd probably, vet it in your own head a bit more rather than just blurting it out,
Yeah, what was the working rhythm when you were writing it then? Was it like a shared folder and you just fill it up and then sketch them out later, or?
Yeah, you'd come up with ideas all the time. You might be making dinner one night and you'd be like, oh, this is terrible and perfect for the book. The family's falling apart right now. This is going in the book. So, inspiration came all the time. And so, yeah, I on my phone, I just had notes, and I'd make notes all the time, and then we'd share our different gags, and we'd kind of gauge from each other which ones worked, which ones didn't. And that's kind of we came up with a lot of content, and then it was about kind of refining that to make the final book.
What was your favorite real life moment that got turned into a comic in the book?
Mine would be driving in the car and the kids fighting in the back. Always, I think it's the most relatable situation any parent find themselves in, where you almost have a car accident by turning your head because the kids are constantly fighting. That was probably when I actually thought of that, I was like, oh, what other situations do I get frustrated in as a parent? And I literally turned them all into gags in the book.
Well, with that one, so I mean, I asked for real life examples. The punchline of that particular story, I've got a few questions.
Let's just say no children were harmed in the making of that gag.
Now, as such good builders, the mocks you created for the photos are amazing, obviously. Did the building for photography change how you would usually build?
Absolutely, it changed the way you have to build. I think I started off by trying to make perfect builds, and then I quickly realized that actually all you see is what the camera sees. And so I would start looking at like putting like there's silhouettes essentially in the background for like just there's a tree like 20 centimeters behind my build to kind of give the sense of depth and that there's way more in the shot than there actually is. But if you like move the camera over here and took a shot from the side, it would all fall apart. So yeah, it was very different than say, making a typical display or something that you might build out of Lego.
And you're exactly right. I do the exact same thing with my toy photography. It only matters what the camera can see. As such, I use a lot of blue tack to put stuff on the walls as opposed to snot bricks. Was there a little bit of that going on?
Now, I use blue tack a lot because, you know, when you have the minifigs posed in these dynamic sort of, walking poses and that, they're not designed to stand on one leg and things like that. So I'd use blue tack a lot. But one thing I'd also noticed was that you have to build in a really weird scale, because it's almost like you build things for minifigs to not reach. Like, you're building shelves and if you're a human, they'd be like 9 feet in the air, but like it looks right when you build it out of Lego.
Is there perhaps a second book that might be coming?
Oh, do you mean like Brick Mum?
I don't know.
I didn't even think of that.
You'll have to wait and see. There's lots of material that we had that didn't make it into the book, but look, we're just really excited to get this first one out, honestly. It's been a huge, huge task. And we're just so excited to actually be able to share it with people.
What is your favorite gag? I know you can't give us spoilers just yet because we still have a little while to wait, but just for us playing at home, what is your favorite gag each in this book so we can look out for them when we finally have them in our hands?
I've got to say there's one where my son faces a monster, Nemesis, coming out of a closet. That was a really fun one for me to do.
For me, it was the question that a lot of parents get asked at some point, which is, where do babies come from? You'll have to, see the book to find out.
Are there any Easter eggs hidden through the book?
There are a couple in some of the larger scale builds that I did for the sets. In the background, there are a few people that I'm referencing in my life and people that we know.
So you obviously don't want to share any of the gags that are in the book. We want people to go out there and get it and read them for themselves. But can you share with us one that you really wanted in there that might have been maybe inappropriate for the Lego audience or just inappropriate in general?
I had a tendency to sort of maybe push it a bit too far, and then I'd have to get wound back in by our publisher and Cade, and then say, hey, maybe Henry, just remember it's a family audience.
So basically they're all Cade's jokes that got used because...
Pretty much.
Let's just say Henry's humor is over here and Cade's is over here, and we had to sort of meet in the middle somewhere.
The jokes in the book aren't just for Lego fans or dads for that matter. Was it part of the plan to make something that everyone can enjoy?
We really wanted it to be very layered so that any kid reading the book could look at the artwork and just appreciate the Lego building and the colors and things like that. Whereas, any parent then can look at it and sort of explain to their, child about, this is what they actually mean, with a bit of tongue-in-cheek humor. So I think there's something in there for everyone.
I think, the part of that is like the fact that they are real life situations. Everyone can relate to these situations. That's part of what we think makes it funny. And there's this layer of Lego on top. Everyone has some association with Lego, and they should be able to get a lot of laughs out of the book.
Cade and I often refer to Lego's the third character in the book. Like it's, my family, Cade's family, and Lego's this other third character in the book where, you're always looking out for it. Like, oh, what are they gonna do with this gag? To actually, bring Lego, the character, into it.
I personally enjoyed the AFOL specific jokes at the end too.
Yeah, it's funny that's one of Henry's ones, and we really wanted it in there, but we kept it right to the back for those AFOLs who have hung around to the very end. That's a tribute for them. So
even when our publisher was reading that one, there's a gag at the end, and I won't give it away, but basically I say to my wife, you know, I'm going out with my friends tonight. And then she says to me, your friends are really weird. And so I think all of you can tell where it's going to go. And then it's just a myriad of, you know, who's who in the Lego world.
Brick Dad is available for pre-order right now and will be perfectly in time for your Father's Day celebrations in August as well. See below for more details.
Henry and Cade, thanks for joining us at Brickvention 2021.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys. It's been great.